After teaching English for many years, studying language fluency, and observing the methods that my students were using to achieve fluency, I took some random notes over the years which I would like to share with you here. I think language fluency is all about creating unbreakable bonds between words and the mental images, memories, or visualizations that they represent, and just doing this for thousands and thousands of words in a language. Then you can play around with the word order and grammar, etc. when you speak, but it's all about creating deep meanings and direct connections between words and mental pictures or representations. By consuming a language, reading and listening to interesting content, all of that vocabulary is just adding to the visual representations and vision of the world that your mind develops over the years. So when you consume a second language, you are doing the same thing. All that vocabulary should be adding to the reality of the world that exists inside your mind or visualization of the world, etc. Maybe a way to solve the always translating when speaking problem that students seem to have is by reading continuously while focusing on imagining the stories in vivid detail, and to do this for hours and hours and hours. When learners look at pages filled with vocabulary, their heads should just be filled with mental movies or mental pictures of the story as they turn the pages. At higher levels, listening can be practiced in the same way. Notice how you do that already in your first language. Just always push your mind towards imagination when reading or listening. Recommend to students that they search for any new words they find using Google Images to connect vocabulary and images mentally. Think about when someone's telling a story. All that vocabulary is just triggering a pictured story within your mind, the part of your mind that thinks in images. I was standing on this cliff, looking over the edge, sweating like crazy. Every word represents an image in the story. It just paints a picture. The speaker is just verbalizing the story that they see in their mind, and you are translating that language into pictures. The most important thing to remember when learning languages is to use your imagination as much as possible when reading and listening, making the stories that you read and listen to as imaginatively vivid as possible. It's all about connecting your imagination to as many written and spoken words as possible. A major part of language learning is actually seeing the same vocabulary again and again and again through extensive reading and listening, and understanding what the words mean directly with the mental concept, idea or image every time, and in different contexts every time. Think about it. You are familiar with words in your first language because you have just read and listened to those words thousands and thousands of times before. I think an important thing to remember is that the method that you use to study a language's vocabulary will reflect itself in the way you try and use the language when you speak. If you study vocabulary by translating every word, the references or memories that you create for every word will be linked to translation, because that is the memory that you have created for every word, and you will be translating when you try and speak. If you translate when you study, you will translate when you speak. But if you associate vocabulary with the real image or concept that it represents mentally, or by visual memory using Google Images, you will have a much better time with speaking fluency because you are following the natural method that you use in your first language. If you study a language by connecting vocabulary with mental or visual images, you will speak with vocabulary that comes directly from mental images, because those are the connections that you have created. Another fantastic thing to do in Link for listening is to listen to individual words again and again and again, using the pronunciation button, connecting mental visualizations with the spoken vocabulary every time you hear the words. Then what you can also do is highlight sections of text and listen to the Google Translator pronunciation for that section of text over and over again, attaching mental imagery to the spoken words as you hear them. Maybe in addition to mentally visualizing images of vocabulary, it could also be helpful to connect visual memory by searching Google Images for the vocabulary that you have just read. Two memories are being formed. One inside the mind mentally and two outside the mind visually. Our words truly are married together with visualizations of the things, ideas or concepts they represent. When I use my first language, if I say the word produce, I truly see and get a sense of produce mentally. It's almost as if the word is the visualization itself. That's what you need to do when you learn a new language, is absolutely marry the words and their visualizations. That's why when people speak so quickly in our first language, we can still put together the complete visualization of what they're trying to say so easily, because the connections between the words and the visualizations are so strong in our own minds. When the words reach our ears, they paint a picture of the story so easily. So when you learn a second language, you should take your time with each word and paint strong mental visualizations for all words. You should also try and connect vocabulary to personal images, memories and concepts that you already have in your mind from past experiences in life. The more personal the connections you make when learning vocabulary, the more you will remember it. For example, if English learners see the word cat, they should think of the family cat. Or if you see the word school, you should think of your first school you went to, etc. When you're reading, each word should trigger an image in your mind, and all of the words together as paragraphs or the full article, etc. should paint a picture of the whole story. It's just like flashcards really, but it's natural, because you will keep getting exposed to the most common words in the language by reading more and more material. And that is a more natural space repetition technique. And the faster that you read through material, the more vocabulary you are reviewing again and again. The exact same thing can be said for listening.